I'm Eric Anderson. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, expect the unexpected. A new campaign wants Californians to think about life emergencies without a safety net.
A do-it-yourself plaza in Encanto survives the weekend after the city said it had to be dismantled. I'm Peggy Pico. What went wrong and how it could remain in place. Then, October's heat gives way to November's cooler weather. What else we can expect in the fall forecast?
Definitely not.
The 7 different tax increases is a lot.
No way. Nah.
Better roads or a new stadium for the Chargers? The where to get the money game in San Diego. City leaders and voters select the projects that'll be funded by taxes. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Overcrowding in federal prisons gets some attention this week. The Justice Department is set to release nearly 6,000 drug offenders around the nation. The move is the result of last year's decision by the Federal Sentencing Commission. Members agreed to cut sentences of drug offenders by 2 years. A majority of those released will go to halfway houses and home confinement, and then the people will be placed on supervised release. Nearly 1,800 of the drug offenders expected to be released are not citizens, and they face deportation. President Barack Obama is taking another look at reforming the criminal justice system. He visited a drug treatment center in New Jersey today to highlight the work helping former inmates return to society. The president announced new rules that will prevent federal agencies from quickly screening out job applicants just because of criminal records. The president says making sure former inmates find jobs, housing, and education is good for the economy. Congress is also considering legislation cutting sentences for nonviolent drug offenders. The race for San Diego mayor could be over by June. Republican incumbent Kevin Faulconer can end the race by winning more than 50% of the vote. So far, there's only one announced Democrat in the race against him. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has details.
It was a surprise to virtually everyone when Gretchen Newsom announced she was running for mayor. The Ocean Beach Town Council president is the first Democrat to enter the race. She made her announcement on October 24th at the County Democratic Convention, receiving big cheers. But that announcement was not planned. Newsom says she didn't even decide to run until that day.
It was spontaneous, but I've been having conversations for months and months with many different colleagues and friends and community leaders about who could and should run for mayor. In those conversations, some of my friends and close colleagues said, Gretchen, you've got strong leadership skills. Maybe you're the leader we've been looking for. So in that moment, I decided I could do this.
Mayor Kevin Faulconer has already raised more than $1.2 million for his reelection. Newsom, in contrast, opened her campaign bank account just last week. So why are the Democrats so far behind Faulconer?
If he wasn't doing such a good job, it would be probably a lot easier to find more candidates that want to run. But I think the reality is that San Diegans are looking around, they like the direction that the city's going, and they don't really feel a need to replace or change things.
Gretchen Newsom says she's privately received lots of support for her candidacy, but the real money and organizational support will come from the local Democratic Party and unions. And all of those have yet to come out with an endorsement. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
It is a new home to help San Diego firefighters respond to emergencies faster. City leaders celebrating the opening of the new Fire Station 45 in Mission Valley today. This is San Diego's first new fire station since 2008. It's on Friars Road near Qualcomm Stadium. The temporary location was in the stadium's parking lot. Firefighters say that public safety is something that tends to fall off of people's radar.
Public safety, for many people, isn't really important until you're on the wrong end of that 911 call and you're calling for help. And then if help is too far away, that's when you think, gosh, perhaps we should have made it a higher priority.
Besides the new building, the station received a new fire truck, and it houses a hazardous materials team that used to be stationed in Mira Mesa. 7 potential local tax hikes that could land on next year's ballot are being considered. KPBS reporter Claire Tregeser says that's a tough sell to voters, so politicians are trying to figure out which ones to push for.
A lot of different tax increases are being talked about for next year's ballot. There's Councilwoman Marty Emerald's Firehouse Bond, a City of San Diego infrastructure bond, a county tax increase also for roads and other infrastructure, and the Chamber of Commerce and Labor Party are doing polling on their own infrastructure bond. Then there's a hotel tax increase for an expanded convention center, and lawyer Corey Briggs's proposal to raise a hotel tax by 5%. Oh yeah, and don't forget a potential vote on building a new Charger stadium, a minimum wage increase, and who knows what else. So we asked local residents, would you vote for 7 different tax increases?
All of them together?
Yes.
No. I think that'd be foolhardy.
Probably not. I think they tax already too much, no?
I don't know about 7 of them.
It would really depend on what they were.
I wouldn't think I would.
Definitely not.
7 different tax increases is a lot.
No way. Nah.
But almost everyone we asked said they would vote for some tax hikes. Of the 20 people we asked, only 3 said no to everything.
I would vote for a sales tax increase for roads and other infrastructure. A county tax for roads and infrastructure, I would do that.
I would say yes.
On all of them?
I'll accept the hotel tax increase.
Road and structure, yes. We have a very bad roads, and my car has been suffering from that.
Hotel tax increase for convention center expansion, yeah, I would vote yes for all those.
Chargers, no. Everything else, yes.
The fire stations, the streets, the sidewalks, the parks, the recreation facilities, stormwater, all of those things it's about a $2 billion need.
San Diego's independent budget analyst Andrea Tevlin says the city needs more money to fix itself up.
We don't have any significant funding sources right now.
But Tevlin knows you can't ask voters for too much.
It has to be very thought through and very focused, and you really have to identify priorities.
You have to be careful when you're putting out taxes. You know, it's kind of like cod liver oil. You have to do it in small doses.
Mesa College politics professor Carl Luna says history shows voters will be more likely to mark their ballots no on competing measures.
So if you have the city and the county both trying for an infrastructure tax and a convention center tax and a charger tax, yeah, every additional one, you're increasing the odds of them all going down.
The city and county know this, so it's unlikely they'll both propose tax increases to improve roads and other infrastructure. The question is, who will it be? Luna says San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer is unlikely to back a city tax increase.
He gets reelected, the assumption is, in 2016. Then he's got to look for another job, and more than likely he's going to be looking for something in Sacramento and in Washington. Taxes don't usually get you elected in the Republican Party.
All of these potential tax increases would need 2/3 voter approval, which isn't easy to get. Since 2008, voters in San Diego County have rejected 11 of 19 tax measures put before them. Claire Tregeser, KPBS News.
KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov helped put that story together. You can tell us what taxes you would vote for by going to kpbs.org/taxes. An early start to the flu season in San Diego has left 1 man dead. Health officials say he was a 90-year-old man. There are 80 cases in the county as of October 24th. The Center for Disease Control recommends taking flu shots every year to avoid the virus. Pregnant women and elderly people face a higher risk. The flu killed 97 people in San Diego last year. Covered California has launched a $29 million ad campaign to entice more people to sign up for a health plan. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says the effort comes as Obamacare enters its 3rd open enrollment season.
The new ad campaign stresses the importance of having health insurance for the unexpected. About 2.2 million Californians who are eligible for a subsidized plan or Medi-Cal remain uninsured. Covered California's executive director Peter Lee says that's down from more than 5 million people 2 years ago.
We have brought in more than 3 million in what is the beginning of changing from people thinking they've got no hope to having financial help to get coverage. So the fact that we still have 2 million left shows that we've made progress, but that we aren't done.
Lee and other exchange officials are on a statewide bus tour to tell people that plans are affordable. The exchange hopes to enroll up to 450,000 new customers by the end of January. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
One of the nation's largest banks is having some credit problems. J.P. Morgan Chase and Company agreed to pay $100 million to settle a California lawsuit. Now, the bank is accused of using illegal methods to collect credit card debt. Those methods include selling bad credit card debt and running a system that would do the so-called robo-signing of court documents. $10 million from the settlement will come to California customers. El Nino-fueled winter storms wreak havoc on Southern California's kelp forests. The underwater habitat is ripped up, but typically grows back quickly. But warmer than normal waters have opened the door to an invasive species. Scripps researcher Ed Parnell says Sargassum Horneri, something commonly called devilweed, could outcompete kelp, and that could dramatically change the underwater habitat off the Southern California coast.
A lot of fish, for instance, will live in the plankton as larvae. They'll drift around, and then when they reach the kelp forest, they'll actually recruit in the upper part of the water column. It's also a foraging area for lots of different other species of fish that live permanently in the kelp forest. And it's a source of structure, protection, and food for many different species. So there's little urchins that are in this area that are just feeding on that. That's drift algae. But then up attached on this rock is Sargassum Horneri. And I'll show you as the video progresses, you'll see how much of the bottom it's actually covering up off some of those Channel Islands up there. Now I'm very concerned that the same thing's going to happen down here off San Diego and really exacerbate its competition with giant kelp and change the fundamental nature of our kelp forests off San Diego County. This species here covers so much of the bottom it can interfere with recruitment of the giant kelp, so it can keep it from coming back. So this is an area that used to be a healthy kelp forest back in the 80s. So between the sea urchins and the brittle stars, and then now you have sargassum at the very tops, where the ophiuroids, the brittle stars and the sea stars don't occupy as much. They're taking over, the remaining territory that's not dominated, where kelps would otherwise be able to grow. So it's kind of a triple whammy.
Well, it is not all gloom and doom, however. Parnell says that Sargassum Horneri thrives in warmer waters. If the region's colder ocean temperatures return next year, it will make it harder for the invasive weed to compete. Hot weather off the charts in San Diego. That was the weather picture for last month. Conditions may usher in big changes for this month. Peggy Pico has more on what to expect.
Joining me with a roundup of this fall's weather and what to expect this winter is my colleague KPBS reporter Susan Murphy. And Susan, give us a recap of October's weather records.
Well, it was hot, wasn't it? And the records, the numbers prove it. It was 7.7 degrees above normal. So the whole month, the 31 days, if you average the high and the low temperature, 7.7 degrees above normal. That's pretty unusual.
Yeah, it didn't just feel like it proved it, but how about overall? The whole year felt hot overall. How does 2015 stack up as far as records for these last 10 months?
Well, the first 10 months have been the hottest on record. Now, 2014, to put this into perspective, was the hottest year ever recorded in the last 130 years. And so far, 2015 is 2 degrees above last year. And of course, we haven't factored in November or December yet. But so far, and that is all courtesy of our warm ocean, which is still in the low 70s off of our coast, and that's about 5 degrees above average.
Oh, sure it is. Yeah, and it's a good plug to go out there and go swimming in it. But I have to say, ever since Halloween, this fall is starting to cool off a little bit. It's actually starting to feel a little tiny bit like fall. What's in the fall forecast for the county?
Well, tonight we're going to get some nice rain showers, so that will be nice. Tonight through tomorrow night, we have a chance of rain showers. It won't be anything substantial. So we're talking maybe a 1/4 inch along the coast. Inland valleys might see 3/4 of an inch, a half inch. But we are expected to have cooler temperatures Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperatures could dip into the upper 60s, which for us, we'll take it. We can pull out those jackets and enjoy some cool fall-like temperatures.
Yeah, anytime it drops below 70, I think that's winter weather here.
Absolutely.
I have to, in this rain, and talking about this little bit of rain we're getting, is this actually the start of this El Nino, the super El Nino we've been talking about?
Well, unfortunately not yet. This is not the signature of El Nino. This is just a small little low-pressure trough that's moving through our region. So again, it's not going to bring substantial rainfall, but El Nino the pattern is starting to set up, and so it could start heading our way, rain showers at the end of November, beginning of December. That's what forecasters are saying.
So we've got a few more weeks to wait for that, but what can we expect as far as when we're talking about El Nino? Are we talking about we're going to have torrential rainstorms? What's it going to look like?
I think that the thing to look for is when we start having a pattern of storms. It's going to be kind of a conveyor belt of storms is what some climate researchers are saying. So when we start seeing a pattern of storm after storm, not that it's going to rain for, 2 months straight, 1 or 2 days at a time of just these storm systems that come through our county, then we'll know that El Nino is here. And again, that pattern should start setting up sometime at the end of this month into early December is when we'll start seeing those.
But we might get a preview tomorrow night.
That's right.
A little bit
of what's possibly a little bit of wetness, at least.
A little bit of...
and enjoy some fall.
All right. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy, thanks for the update.
Thanks.
Let's consider that fair warning as far as the weather is concerned. We are looking for a chance of rain tonight in San Diego. Temperatures are going to be in the 60s and 70s along the coast. Then there are more showers expected in the inland valleys with temperatures there in the 60s and 70s. If you travel up into the mountains, breezy conditions expected. Temperatures in the 50s and 60s, a little bit more seasonal there. And clear skies in the deserts with temperatures in the 70s. There is a big funding boost to help more San Diegans find jobs. The Able Disabled Advocacy Group is celebrating the first annual National Apprenticeship Week. They also announced a $3.2 million grant that expands their apprenticeship program. That money will help 300 people take advantage of apprenticeships over the next 5 years.
It's free training. It's no cost for the classroom part. Test fees are paid for certifications, and then you get paid to learn on the job. I mean, who wouldn't want to go for that?
Able Disabled Advocacy has trained and placed more than 16,000 people in jobs since 1975. A Southeast San Diego group has lost a bid to improve a small piece of their community, but KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser says residents were put through the city's bureaucratic grinder.
It started with a plan many months ago to turn the corner of Euclid and Imperial Avenues in Encanto into a community gathering space. Residents behind the group Better Block decided to add planters and benches to a small lot to create a place to sit and spend time together. Organizer Barry Pollard says he met with city staffers and thought the group had sent in the required paperwork.
In good faith, we thought we were following the rules. That application did not get routed to the right person, so officially we did not submit an application.
2 weeks after Better Block members set up their structures, Pollard got a letter from the city. It said he'd violated the city's municipal code. He'd be fined, and it would all have to come down. Then on Saturday, things changed again.
We had planned today to take the benches out.
But they realized the letter from the city says they need a permit to remove the structures, so they left them in place for now.
These are all symptoms. These benches are symptoms. These planters are symptoms. There has to be an equitable, fair, fairly applied, reasonable process to allow communities to beautify their own areas.
The community gathering organized on Saturday to take down the planters and benches instead became an informal rally. Residents painted signs and gave impromptu speeches, voicing their frustrations with the city.
If it would have been any place else, if it would have been Point Loma, La Mesa, Old Town,
would have made one of these, it wouldn't have been no fuss, no muss.
Pollard also spoke to the crowd and said he knew of other projects in other parts of the city that had been done without permits.
This is not a southeastern San Diego issue. This is drastically getting on the radar screen to be a citywide issue that people have been dealing with, and depending upon where you live, depends upon the amount of pushback you get. That's obvious, and I am living it now, and a bunch of other community members are living through it as well.
A spokesman for Mayor Kevin Faulconer says Pollard knew he didn't have a permit and proceeded anyway. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Now, San Diego's Development Services Department sent Pollard the letter. Officials did not respond to our requests for comment. Peggy Pico, meanwhile, has more on community do-it-yourself projects and the roadblocks they face.
Some call these types of do-it-yourself community improvement projects civic engagement hacks or disruptive innovation. But in the case of the Encanto Four Corners project, the city calls it illegal. Joining me with the next steps for this project and other DIY neighborhood projects are my guests, Xavier Leonard, Civic Technology and Engagement Projects Consultant, and Barry Pollard, founder of Urban Collaborative Project that was behind the Encanto project or plaza. And Barry, you said that you think this problem about getting timely permits for this plaza is exactly the opposite of what Mayor Kevin Faulconer is saying about his focus on neighborhoods. Tell us about why.
Well, when neighborhoods first and comes into the conversation, that would paint a picture in my mind that neighborhoods have priorities in the city, and that neighborhood input has priorities in the city. And maybe, hopefully, the motives will be the same. What we've learned is that may not necessarily be the case. We were expecting a more collaborative sort of a response, asking the city to help facilitate us in development services to work through the permitting process to make sure that those benches and planters stayed. That's not what we received in the end. In the end, we got a letter asking us to remove it.
Let me ask Xavier about this. You were with the city's Innovation Lab. How can community groups improve their neighborhoods? Can they do things like this, or is there something else they need to do?
Yeah, the option is there for community groups to improve their neighborhoods. It's about the process that we have and how we approach what's being done, right? So, for example, a lot of the stuff that folks have to go through, a lot of stuff that even Barry had to go through, it really didn't apply to what they were doing, right? And the problem is that we have some structures within our developmental services department where a kind of a square peg is being put into a round hole, and it doesn't fit because these are not projects that are aimed at just building spaces. They're really anchored around building community.
Sure.
And that's their focus.
Sure, and I want to narrow down on that because you did a TED Talk about the distinction between read-only and read-write model of community engagement. Can you briefly explain that to me?
Sure. So in a read-only model, something, you can be a part of something, right? You can see it, but it's not yours, right? It's not something that you can open and you can edit and you can sort of mix it up and put back in place. It's going to always say what was given to you. Whereas in a read-write model, it's truly yours. It's something that you own. You can take it, you can copy it, you can send it to other people, and it's still going to be yours. So it's about the level of access and engagement, both that people want to have and what they are given. And it's really, it needs to be viewed by the city as two distinct categories of projects.
Okay. And Barry, I want to ask specifically about this project, though, on the Four Corners. What kind of response did you get from community members in preparing and building this plaza, and then also about the possibility of having to dismantle it?
The response from the community was, it's about time someone's done something on that corner. And social media really picked it up, and it's been quite an active conversation. we've got a tremendous amount of support from the community to get that done.
And what are the next steps?
Next step is we're on a parallel track. Now, we are going to continue working through the permitting process with development services to make sure that A, we have a permit to remove things, and then B, that we can initiate a right of entry permit so we can place those benches back up. They are getting taken down. And then at the same time, we're working with folks like Xavier and some other folks to help develop a policy that makes sense.
All right, Barry Pollard and Xavier Leonard, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, it's Politics Monday, your guide for the week ahead on the campaign trail. That's Monday on the PBS News Hour.
Following up on that entangled humpback whale that was rescued in La Jolla, SeaWorld San Diego officials say that rescuers were not fully able to remove that lobster net that trapped the whale over the weekend. But officials say they cut enough of that line off the whale to boost its chances for survival. The distressed whale was first spotted off Balboa Pier in Newport Beach on Friday. Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Midday Edition, the pounding waves, the undersea volcanoes, and lots of tiny earthquakes. We'll hear about the forces that shaped and are shaping the Southern California coast. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back here tomorrow night. Have a great evening.